Yeah, I forgot to start the timer.
Yeah. Last episode, for those of you that are back with us.
Oh, we started again?
Yeah, we did.
See, this is why I didn't start.
But I like the way that it starts like that. I feel like when you listen to the podcast and you just sort of come in,
you kind of just walk into the bar.
Yeah, it feels like you're
look
walking
these,
into a conversation.
These two old guys are just sitting here chewing the fat.
Yeah, let me actually look this time, make sure we're recording. Because you're that one we totally forgot to record. Okay, we are actually recording. So my name's Tom, and you are...
I am Jack.
And this is...
What to do with your old explicit content, formerly called What to do with your old porn.
Yeah, don't...
What was that?
I just was saying it. I told you the last episode. I told you that students, when they heard the word porn, and I played back the episode. I was actually playing it for a substitute teacher. They were just like, "Porn! I can't believe you said it." Yeah, but we really don't. There's nothing pornographic about this.
No, that was just what I came up with.
Before we get into the actual topic, somebody's probably gonna steal this. Maybe I shouldn't say it, but I'll say it anyway because I've been exploited all my life. this young lady I work with, she was talking about doing a cooking show, and she was going to call it OnlyPans.
OnlyPans?
OnlyPans instead of OnlyFans.
Oh, okay.
It's got to exist. You don't have an OnlyFans account?
Believe it or not, no.
Yeah, no, I don't either. But if I did, I don't know what it would be. Santa OnlyFans? I mean, it's scary to think about what we could possibly offer for our OnlyFans.
I have no interest in that. I barely have any interest in social media.
As you shouldn't. It has caused great problems for people, including a young teacher who recorded some explicit content in her classroom on the weekends. And then when she got fired, she was all indignant, like, "Oh, what did I do wrong? It was the weekend." I'm like, "Oh."
With her class?
No. She was in her classroom with her husband or boyfriend, and they were filming it like in the setting of a elementary school classroom. But it was the weekend, so she didn't think she was doing anything wrong.
Yes, no, of course.
I believe it's safe to say, for me, who is the giver of sage wisdom, that there are certain things that you absolutely know you're doing is wrong, and when you get caught, you should say, "I'm sorry, my bad, been caught."
Yes.
Yes, that's one of them. Yes.
Kind of like how I ended up in carpet cleaning.
Let's hear it. Or should we go to the topic? No.
You have a topic?
You're the topic guy this recording session. It's all you.
Oh, no.
You don't have one yet?
No, I do. I have 150 floating around in my head right now.
Well, then let's go to the topic.
Well, the one that you just stumbled on was, this is why I tell people, I said, you don't look at people like they're saints, because, most of the time they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And, when somebody calls you a thief or something like that, if you look back at your history, most of the time you could go, okay, I've done things. Back in, it was 35 years ago. Yeah, 35 years ago. Well, 34 years ago, I guess. I had a 6-month-old baby boy at home. And I was the youngest assistant manager of a retail chain that they'd ever had at the age of 20. And they put me through the training program and stuff like that. And spoiler alert, you don't put 20-year-olds through programs like that, because they're not mature enough to handle it and give them a lot of burden. They put me through the stuff. They treated you pretty good for a while, but then they, eventually it was a salaried position. And I think at the time I was making like $400 a week, something like that, which wasn't bad in, 1990. It wasn't horrible. $400 a week. But then they had something called, and now I'm justifying here, so follow along. They had something called Chinese overtime. You've ever heard of this?
No, but I guarantee I know where you're going, because I probably have a similar story.
Okay, Chinese overtime is basically, if you work 41 hours, they divide 41 into 400, and that rate is your hourly rate for your overtime. Subsequently, if you worked 55 hours, they divide 55 into 400, and that rate is your overtime rate.
Well, for salary, you don't get overtime, though.
No, this is overtime. This is what they call it, Chinese overtime. And I don't know why. So if you're getting offended by the fact that I'm calling it that, you could tell me why, and then maybe I'll stop saying it.
I'm going to look it up.
Why they call it Chinese overtime?
Yeah, no.
Maybe it's not a thing. I don't know. That's what I always call it.
I think you're right, though, because I had, there were situations where around the same time, and I was in my I was probably mid-20s. I was assistant manager at a Friendly's restaurant, and I was salaried. And I mean, I worked just this absurd amount of hours. But yes, I believe that when they gave me the original offer letter gave me like an hourly rate based on something like that, like 45 or 48 hours or whatever. And because, you know, they call you an exempt employee because you're exempt from time and a half. And, I mean, one of the reasons I eventually quit was because I was just getting to the point where I just was working 50
and making less than you were at 40. Yeah.
I was making less per hour than my line cooks were.
Yeah, this is exactly what happened.
And it was just like, are you kidding? And they just used the salary as an excuse to
overwork
the crap
so
out of me.
Subsequently, the longer you worked, which if you were an assistant or a second assistant, as I was, you were the one that got stuck with like all the hours. You were working all the nights, all the weekends, everything like that nobody else wanted to work. And the more you worked, the less you got paid. So subsequently, that built up a little resentment in me. So like if I was hungry or thirsty, I would feel no qualms about grabbing a Snickers bar and a Coke off the shelf. Nothing. None whatsoever.
I was taking Gallon's ice cream.
Gallons of ice cream?
Yeah, it was Friendly's.
Yeah, so I would grab that off the shelf. If I had a kid's toy at home needed batteries, kid was getting batteries because they weren't paying me, so that was how they were paying me. So subsequently, I think one of the other workers must have seen something. And I mean, she was down a do-gooder kind of thing, so she must have seen something at some point, and she was like, you know, all company loyal and like that, had worked for him for like 30 years and didn't want to see her pension go down with my walking out with Cokes, you know, and sending the company into a tailspin with the prospect of having to feed me a Snickers bar. So she apparently turned me into security, and security approached me at one point and called me in the office and confronted me, and they could clearly tell that they knew what they were talking about just based on what they confronted me about. And they offered me the alternative to be escorted out of the building by the police, subsequently being fired, or I could leave of my own accord. So you know what I did? I left of my own accord because I'm not letting anybody tell me what to do. So anyway, that's how I got into my business.
Chinese overtime. So here we go. Here's the I haven't found out why they call it, but it's
much better than Chinese democracy.
Oh my gosh.
At least it's faster than Chinese democracy.
That Chinese democracy record is literally right next to your arm.
Oh, you got it?
Guns N' Roses, yeah. So this is what they were doing to me too. They call it I don't know why they call it Chinese overtime, but they say, so if you work 50 hours a week, right? Normally you'd get your base rate would be, you know, for 40, and then you get time and a half for the additional 10. But the way Chinese hour time works is it's just the opposite. So if your standard hourly rate's $20 an hour for the 40 hours, then the 10 hours afterwards is half of what your hourly rate is instead of 1.5. So your salary is rated at $1,100 for 50 hours. That's how they calculate it.
Either way, it's corrupt.
Well, it's again like the kind of thing that I'm looking at it. It might even be illegal. My sister could probably tell me, but it's just a lot of those companies would hire somebody, give them a salary that looked pretty decent, but then by not having to pay the time and a half,
right? They owned you.
They were balancing their budget, but also like in my case, I'll tell you the two things that they did to me, which were ludicrous, and again made me want to steal from them, was they at one point, you know, the budget wasn't doing well, so they'd send a cook home early. So then I just have to cook, you know, any orders we got in for the last 2 or 3 hours, and then eventually they fired the maintenance company that did the bathroom, so the closing manager had to clean the bathrooms, and I was the closing manager 6 nights a week. And that's when I finally just said, yeah, enough is enough. But it was insane.
Yeah, they were they were convinced because they were so inept at hiring people and training people. They had this one young girl working as their clerical girl, counting the drawers and stuff like that. She was a sweet girl, but she couldn't add without taking off her shoes. And her drawer kept coming up short, and they apparently were convinced that, either I was stealing from the drawer or she was or something like that. So they tried to pin that on us, or not on her, because I told them, I said, there's no way she did this. No way at all. And there was no way that I did it either. But that was when I decided it was time to leave, which I knew, honestly, instinctively when I was walking out the door, that was probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, even though it was also the worst thing that seemed like it could have happened at the time.
Yeah.
Because I ended up, let me see, what did I do after that? I went home, told my wife. That went over really well. We had a nice steak dinner that night, and went for a walk.
Steak dinner here.
Went for a walk on the beach afterwards. I'm obviously being sarcastic, but I went home and told her, and then tried to figure out what a high school kid with no skills could do that didn't have to do with retail.
What was the retail organization?
It was Phase Drugs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I remember them.
Yeah, that's why the logo on my van looks like the Phase Drug logo.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Does it ring a bell now?
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing.
I stole their logo. I figured that's the last time, I'm kind of on the outside with my business. I figured it'll probably be the last time I'll re-up the logo. So I'm like, they're not in business anymore. I'm stealing their logo and putting my name on it now because they got me into it. So, I went from that to, I sold meat out of a truck for, I think, a week. The little trucks that drive around with the meat in the back. Yeah. Remember that?
Yeah. I when I was doing stand-up comedy, I tried so hard to come up with a stand-up bit about parking lot steaks. And it's a little different than the meat trucks. I know what you're talking about. So they still have those. They still pop up in Buffalo every now and then. It's like, 20 ribeyes for $30 or something.
It's like Omaha Steaks comes to your door. Speaking of which, we're accepting sponsors for Omaha Steaks if they wish to sponsor.
They could just send us the steaks. They don't even have to send us the
that
money.
would be cool too, because that's what we had tonight, or Alabama Meat Market.
It was Alabama Meat Market.
Which was quite exceptionally good.
Yeah, there were some good steaks. Better than Omaha. And you don't even have to go to Omaha to get their
There
steaks.
you go. Keep it local, folks. Keep it local.
Yep.
So I sold meat out of the truck. I basically spent a lot of time sleeping under trees and cemeteries that week. Because I didn't really have a lot of faith in my sales ability of selling meat out of a truck. Hard to believe as that is. And then I got a job at a carpet cleaning company that said they would train you, which I thought was wonderful. And then in my own stupidity, I thought, well, this is great because I'll never have to deal with money or finances or numbers again. Subsequently, here we are 34 years later, and I've owned my own business for 30. So I actually technically own 2 businesses now.
What's the second one?
That would be the ministry.
Oh.
It's a nonprofit, but still a business entity.
That's true.
That one's easier to run because it doesn't have to make any money.
I used to own a bagel business, so I don't have that. But I do have a podcasting network.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Doesn't make any money, but
yeah. So I got working for that company. I worked for them for about 1.5 years, and then realized how much money they were making versus how much money I was bringing home. I'm like, well, this doesn't seem right. Again, stupidity. Yeah. Because I was young and stupid, and so decided. Me and 2 other guys left them at the same time. Went out on our own. Me and another guy partnered up. That lasted about 3 days because I didn't like having a partner that didn't do any work. I was kind of weird that way. And the other guy actually stuck it out for quite a while too. I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but
that's the quote of the episode. I didn't like having a partner that didn't do any work.
Yeah. So here we are. So if you ever wondering how I got into business, that was it.
And Jack, so share with us what the name of the carpet cleaning organization is and maybe some contact information.
I'll give you the phone number: 1-800-STANLEY Steamer.
There you go. So you worked for Stanley Steamer before you?
No. I worked for it was a small family organization. They'd been around at that point for about 75 years. They had an exceedingly good reputation.
So were they upset when you went out on your own?
They were not happy.
I was gonna say, because I feel
Yeah,
like
because there was three of us at once left, and we did it intentionally because, which is also part of the reason I try not to get too upset when people screw me over.
boy, teach me how to do that.
Okay, well, it's not. No, I do because
I am not good at that.
Yeah, well, you have to have some introspection for one, which it sucks because you realize what a tool you are most of the time.
Thanks.
Well, I'm much like confessing that I got into the business for being fired for stealing. I couldn't. Yeah. It's not something you should do. Tell people stuff like that. But at the same time, after 30 years of being in business, I feel like I've got enough people that trust me, and between the other things that I do and that, they're like, don't let's not paint each other to look like saints.
Well,
any of us.
I mean, to be fair, I did get fired from a job for stealing, but I didn't actually steal. Somebody else.
You should have. You don't know what you're missing.
Oh,
the
my
Snicker
Lord.
bars, the Cokes.
That was irritating. Yeah. Even back to that YMCA thing, I don't even remember what the heck they fired me for. It was just some pile of trumped up
well, I ended up
goofy stuff, but
yeah, what was I? We got a rabbit trail back to that one. I lost track.
About the guy being upset that you went out on your own.
Oh yeah. They were in their second generation at that point, and they were kind of, I hate to say it, but they were kind of riding on their laurels of the parents that had built the business, because the parents clearly, they took care of some very high end people, and had a really exceedingly good reputation. And by the second generation, there was no reason for it. They didn't know how to do the work. They may have run the business well and had a good image, but they, from a procedural standpoint, they didn't have a clue what they were doing. They were just doing it the same way that parents did, which was fine back in the 50s. It wasn't fine in the 90s. Technology changes and, chemistry changes, things like that. Yeah. So, the three of us left and struck off on our own.
Well, you said it was the kids that were running it, right?
Yeah, it's been out of business for about 20 years now.
Yeah,
I always say the first generation builds it.
Yeah.
First generation builds it. Second generation inherits it. The third generation kills it.
Sells it, maybe.
Or sells it. Actually, I can't say that because I do have one customer that has they have a window and door company that does really well, and they're in their third generation now. And I know their kids have come into it, and they're doing exceedingly.
Yeah, I don't think it's a hard and fast thing. It amazes me sometimes when you get situations. Is that our alarm?
No.
Oh, when you get situations where the next generation doesn't want to do it. I think there was a place out our way, which to the listeners, may not recognize it, but you'll remember it, called Brown's Berry Patch. Mm-hmm. It was this really nice little family kind of country store, and they had strawberry picking and activities for the kids and all that stuff. And at some point, the father got older and none of the kids wanted it because they didn't need the money. That's not what happened?
No,
you're looking at me like, shut the heck up.
Yeah.
Why?
I'll tell you off. I'll tell you off.
That's the story that was put out to the public.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stories floating around about me too that aren't true because of things like I was just telling about,
I didn't look at that as a negative thing. I mean,
well, no, it's not a negative thing, but it's, it's in regards to the conversation you were just having, it's a private family thing, which I have a tie to that.
Oh, to that family?
Well, to what they're going through.
Oh, but I mean, the Brown's Berry Patch thing happened years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, so you're still telling me to shut the hell up?
Yeah, I am.
All right, well, let's move on.
I'll tell you'll understand why afterwards.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now I got nothing else. Now I got nothing else to say.
Oh, well, I was just my point even in that was, I have a polite way to word it. I don't know if I need to be polite, but I have people that even in my nonprofit that had accused me of stealing when I started the nonprofit, and it followed me around for 10 years, and it wasn't true. It was a skew. What the heck am I? The way they look, the situation that they saw, if they would have just come to me and say, "Hey, we saw this.
Right.
What happened?" But they didn't. They just assumed that what they saw was me stealing something.
Well, I mean, to be fair, you were wearing a ski mask and you were holding a gun. So.
Well, okay, yeah, but still, no.
This was
but
this was outside of my pool.
No,
so,
but this,
no.
I mean, but these types of things,
Yeah,
like what
well,
you
I
were just saying, they do have ramifications, which is why I don't want to feed into it, because I know the whole story about the other thing you were talking about, and it's not what not what people think, and it's, I wouldn't. I've had it done to me, so I don't want, because even this situation from years ago when I first started the ministry, where people were assuming based on their perspective that something nefarious had happened.
Yeah.
If they would have just come to me and asked me, hey, I saw you, do this thing. What was that? Like, what that? I could have explained it, and they would have known instantly as soon as I explained it that it was very, very innocent. But they didn't, and instead they were, talking to other people, and now I have whole groups of people that, are fairly certain they can't trust the things that I do.
Well, my experience,
which based on this whole podcast may be accurate.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, my experience has been is that people that spread those types of rumors are usually the ones that are doing things that are nefarious, and it's just an easier way to draw attention away from them.
Well, be careful there, because you were just ready to do it a second ago.
I didn't accuse
but you were talking about what you thought what you had heard.
My understanding was there was not a second generation that was willing to take on the business.
Well, that's accurate.
Why they shut it down. That's what.
That seems. I mean, to that extent, it's fairly accurate.
Which I don't think you have a succession for your next generation for your business, do you?
No.
Yeah. See, when I was doing my bagel business, which mind you was smaller, my kids didn't want to take it over if I couldn't do it because I was physically unable to. I mean, it's a thing. I think the hard part is that, going back to,
Speaking of which, if you know anybody out there that wants to buy a profitable carpet cleaning business.
I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, it's probably not a bad investment, but
no, it wouldn't be. Most people listening to this would do better than they're currently doing in their career.
What's that guy? The plumber guy out by us,
oh,
Bauer.
Yeah.
He was just. I mean, Bauer. To me, like I look at a guy like Bauer. I think the alarm went off. We'll close with this, but I look at a guy like Bauer. Here's a guy that built his reputation. It's just a good dude. Like it's just a guy that people like to work with, but it was just him, and it was his company. And he still was able to sell it.
Yeah.
And and to me, it's all like, how do you sell you? Like you're
right.
Like the people, I feel like the reason that people went to Doug Bauer was because he was a great plumber. Now, I would think that if you were his customer, you'd probably have faith that he wouldn't just sell it to some jamoke because his name's still on the business. But is jamoke even a word? But that's
I don't know. Google it.
Jamoke. I don't even know how to spell it. All right. But listen, I wasn't saying nothing bad about Brown's Berry Patch.
No, it's okay.
I mean, I can if you want.
No, you can't.
I mean, I can. I wouldn't. I just have to make something up, though. I loved that place.
Yeah, no, a lot of people did. This might be our highest listening episode ever, just because we mentioned Brown Berry Patch.
Yeah, the
we'll get all the millennials that are longing for their youth. Go, I remember that little tractor and the boat. The goats standing on top of the silo.
What's going to happen is somebody's going to be like eating breakfast at Albion and going, man, can you believe that Thom, Jennings, and Jack Burris were saying mean things about Brown's Berry Patch? And I'd be like,
Jack Burris is a thief,
I'd be like, dude, listen.
Jack Burris is a thief. Bad. He admitted it.
Yeah, you are a thief. So am I. Stole ice cream from Friendly's. Hey, with that, let's wrap up. Thanks so much for listening, Ben.
Hey, you know what the best thing you can do, though, is?
What?
Love one another.
Love one another. This is going to be your closing tagline forever. I love it. I particularly love it because it's a line from the Todd Rundgren song. Love is the answer.
It is. I should get that tattooed on my arm or something.
I got mine.
Oh, look at that. You do. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
All right. Well, we're over time. So listen, hey, subscribe, share. Don't tell people we were talking crap about Brown's Berry Patch because God,
we weren't.
We were not. All right. Take it easy.
Yeah.